Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to do continue our cookie section, but today we're going to do what's called an icebox cookie, and that's where the cookie dough is mixed and then chilled down. We shape it, and then you go ahead and chill it, and then you slice it into uniform pieces. So today we're going to do the classic checkerboard cookie, and the thing to have a successful checkerboard cookie is know that you need two things. You need time and you need patience, because after each time we work with this dough, it's going to have to chill down, because if the dough starts to warm up at all and I start my slices, the colors will start to blend or marbleize together. So keep that in mind. This is nothing like a creamy method drop cookie where you can mix it, you can portion it, and you can bake it all within about 20 minutes. That's not going to happen. In class, this is going to actually be a 2-day process for us, because one day we will mix the dough and just start the building process. The next day we'll come and we'll finish our checkerboard pattern, and then we'll slice it into portions. So this icebox method, it's done by the creaming method, but just like when we did our butter cookies, we don't want these cookies to spread, so we're going to end up doing creaming method but with powdered sugar, and we're just going to blend it until the powdered sugar and the butter are a smooth paste. We're not looking to aerate at all. Once we get that, we'll then add our liquid ingredients, which is eggs. It's a little bit of vanilla. It has a little bit of almond extract. We'll mix that in, and then we'll add our dry ingredients. The dry ingredients for a beautiful checkerboard cookie is going to have some cake flour, so it has a nice little crunch to it, and we're going to add some almond flour to it. Again, the almond flour, it's a pretty hot commodity right now just because it upscales the flavor a little bit. So what you're going to see, I did not mix the dough in front of you because we know how to do the creaming method. So when the video starts, you're going to see it start from where I have the dough rolled out. And this is another key when you do icebox cookie. Look, I lost my tongue there. I haven't had enough Diet Coke yet this morning. Is that you need to make sure that your layers are even thickness. So you can see the sheeter behind me. I went ahead and already rolled it out of the sheeter. I went to number 6. That's about 1/4 of an inch. If not, you can use the rolling pins that have the little band on it so that you can get even thicknesses. So even thickness, chill the dough, and again, 2 important things: patience, and time. And we're not going to rush this product. So you'll see me start to build these again after the dough has been mixed and after it's had its first chill. So I've got my doughs out, so I have my chocolate and my vanilla. The only difference really is the chocolate has 1 extra egg in it, and it has a lot of cocoa powder, and that's what's going to make it obviously dark. And then I have my vanilla short dough, which is the same type of short dough that we would use for tarts. So here it is, and you can see they are both the same thickness, but what you will notice is that they are different sizes. That's not going to matter. So what I want to do is my first build. So I'm using water as my glue. You could use an egg wash, and all I'm going to do now is set my vanilla right on top of my chocolate, and I'm just going to square this off. And I just use a ruler just to help me maintain straight cuts. Now this dough I'm not going to throw away, and look how nice and even thickness my pieces are. I'm not going to throw this away. I'm actually going to save it, because you're going to see that I'm going to frame out the cookies once they're built. And so I'm just going to knead both colors together so that I don't waste it. Now, if at any point you can feel that the dough is starting to get soft, we'll just run and we'll put it right back into the blast freezer. The blast freezer, is set really, really cold. If you don't, obviously, you're not going to have one at home because they're quite expensive. But if you don't have a blast freezer at work, that's okay too, because then you can just put it in your main freezer. But just know, instead of just 10 minutes in the blast freezer, you might have to chill it down for about 30 minutes. Okay, so here's my first set. So I have 2 layers. Now what I want to do is create these into 4 layers. So I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to cut it in half. And I'm going to spritz this because I want my layers to stick. And here are my 4 layers. I'm just going to press down. And then look how nice my layers are. Okay? So that's perfect. Now what we want to do, the dough is still nice and cold, so I want to go ahead and start to portion these so that I can do my build. And I have this beautiful cutter, so all I have to do is just roll this across the top of it. And you can see that's going to give me my thickness that I need to cut these. I'm just going to line up my ruler so that I get straight cuts. And I'm going to cut down. And what I'm looking for is 4 of these strips. So here's my first strip. I'm going to take this. You can see the dough is still really cold, so it's fighting the knife a little bit. And I'm going to lay this down. So here's my first layer. I'm going to spritz this. I'm going to move my knife. I'm just going to line this up too. And I'm going to continue to do this until I get my 4 layers. And now what I want to do is alternate when I start to stack this. And so I had white here, so now I need to flip this so that I have chocolate. You can see my dough is so cold it doesn't want to stick together. I'm going to place this one right on top. I'm just going to press it down. Looking good so far. I'm going to do one more cut. Line these guys up. So I'm just going to continue to do this, and I'll show you what it looks like as soon as I get my next build. So my checkerboards, I went ahead and built them. And so you can see this one I did with just 3 rows, just to make it a little bit on the smaller side, so it's almost a petit-four. And here I did the 4 layers, and I just popped them back in the freezer for just a minute. And here I did the 4 tiers. Now you can see I wasn't worried about trimming the edges yet because I want to wrap these. So when you go ahead and wrap these, I took some of our extra dough and I rolled it down to 0 on the sheeter. So that's about 1/18 of an inch. I'm going to put my the dough down, and I'm going to show you in 2 different colors. You can decide which one you like. So you can see I misted it with a little bit of water. Again, you could use egg wash if you wanted. I'm just going to trim that edge. And now I'm just going to start to roll this. And you see, because I sprayed it with water, look how beautifully it's going to just take the dough. I did have a little bit of dusting flour down on the bench. And if you have one little section, like you can see right here, it's not completely wrapped. All I have to do is take my scraps and just press a little bit of this dough right in. And I'm going to show you how we're going to fix it. So I've got that. My patch is done. And now all I'm going to do is just continue to move this on the bench. And see, it's going to flatten it. And you would never know that I had to patch anything. So with my knife, let's take a look at my ends. And look at my beautiful checkerboard. I'm just going to trim off this also. But again, I'm not going to throw this dough out. I'm going to wrap it, and I'll save it either for framing or for making tart doughs. So here is my my smaller one, my 3 rows that I wrapped in chocolate. And now I'm going to do my larger one, and I'm going to wrap it in the white dough, and then you can decide which color you like best for you. Okay, so this one wrapped all the way. So again, I'm going to take my knife and just trim, cut off my ends. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to push it on the bench. So you can see one is square and one is rectangle. So the one with more layers is going to be more on the rectangle side than the square side when you look at these. Okay? And again, it's going to be whatever your need is. This one is going to be smaller, so about 2 bites. And this one will spread out a little bit, so it's about 3 to 4 bites. So what I need to do, again, I'm going to chill this for just a minute, and then I'm going to show you how to mark them and how we can slice them down to bake them. Now I want to show you before I cut these, one of these logs, because I always want to show you a little bit of a different style. We're just going to upgrade this a little bit by rolling this in some colored sugar. And then for the holidays, you know, it just makes it pop a little bit. So I put a little bit of water down, and then look what I'm doing. I'm just going to roll it right on my tray of sanding sugar. And then when I cut this, I'll have a little glimmer of the red, and then it'll give a nice little crunch to my cookie. Okay, so again, I'm just going to set this aside and let that set for a minute. And then I'm going to bring out both logs, and we're going to go ahead and cut them, and we're going to bake them. So I'm ready to start cutting. So I'm going to do this log first, and again, I'm going to use, this is actually to cut the pattern in strudel dough, but it's a beautiful marker. So I'm just going to take this, press down, and run it right across the top of it. And you see how it's portion controlled for me? And that way I make sure that every cut is the exact same thickness, which is really important when you do an icebox cookie, because if you cut one thicker than the other, you know, one is going to overbake before the other one is set. So cutting is really important, even thickness. And also when you cut, make sure that you hold your knife straight, because you don't want to cut these at an angle, because again, then you will ruin the thickness and it will bake unevenly. Now this is a cookie done again by the creaming method. We don't want the cookie to go completely brown on the top of the cookie, because then guess what? We would lose that checkerboard pattern. So we're going to bake it just until the bottom starts to go light brown, just like any cookie, because that's how we check it for doneness. And just the edges on the top will start to show a little bit of color. So I've got my sheet pan, and what I want to do is space these out, but because I did the creaming method and my fat is powdered sugar, I only need to leave just about a ½ inch between each cookie, because they're just going to puff up slightly. They're not going to spread out if I did my job correctly. Aren't they beautiful? Now, checkerboard cookies are a thing in a bakery. When you see them, a cookie this size is going to sell for about $2 because they're labor intensive. And a lot of people don't want to take the time to make the checkerboard cookies, again, just because it's really hard on the labor schedule. But it's considered an upscale talent, so that's why I need you guys to know how to do it. Because the more that you can do and the more that you can show in your picture portfolio, the better that you can market yourself. So again, there's my cuts. I'm going to cut off my end. There we go. And again, I'm just going to portion, tray up. And once they're baked, you can see the difference between the ones with the sugar or without the sugar, and you can decide which one you like better. The ones with the sugar are going to look very much like those Maurice Linnell cookies. Sorry guys, we had a little bit of a cart noise. So again, these will look just like the Maurice Linnell cookies that you buy in the grocery store. My baking time is going to be about 8 to 10 minutes, and my temperature is going to be 375. So as soon as my oven is warmed up, again, I'm going to pop them in, and I'm looking for, again, to have light brown on the bottom and just a little bit of browning around the edge of the cookie. No surface browning, because again, that will actually make us lose our checkerboard pattern, because the white will blend in with the dark. So as soon as these are baked, I'll come back and I'll show you what it look like. they don't have any finishing touches to them. The granulated sugar or just the plain checkerboard pattern is design enough.